The modern image of Rani Lakshmibai is one of high-stakes cinematic action, a fearless warrior charging into battle with swords in both hands and a young child tied to her back. But this legend obscures a colder historical reality. The conflict in Jhansi was rooted in a paperwork dispute, and its most lasting consequence was the erasure of the very child strapped to her back. The vulnerability of the state began in 1853 with the death of Maharaja Gangadhar Rao. Having lost their biological son years earlier, the Maharaja used his final days to formally adopt a 5-year-old relative, renamed Damodar Rao, to ensure the succession. The British East India Company saw an opportunity for expansion. They invoked a corporate policy called the Doctrine of Lapse, which allowed them to annex any princely state lacking a biological male heir. The man overseeing this takeover was the Governor-General, Lord Dalhousie. The 1857 uprising in Jhansi began as a mother's legal defense against an empire stealing her adopted son's inheritance. Lakshmibai's first move was entirely diplomatic. She engaged an Australian lawyer and sent formal appeals to the East India Company, citing 19th-century treaties and Hindu legal traditions to validate her son's right to rule. The British rejected her claims. They evicted her from her fort, forced her into a town palace, and then held her liable for 36,000 rupees of the former king's personal debts. Her famous declaration, "Mai apni Jhansi kabhi nahi dungi," was a literal refusal to accept this legal eviction notice. When the British lifted a local ban on cattle slaughter and occupied a village temple, they closed off any remaining hope for a peaceful settlement. With her legal avenues exhausted, the bureaucratic dispute transformed into a struggle for survival. By June 1858, the rebel forces faced overwhelming odds. The British had cornered the remains of the uprising at the massive fort of Gwalior. Struck down by a British soldier while leading a cavalry charge, the Rani of Jhansi died on the battlefield. Her loyalists, led by the ascetic Baba Gangadas, hurriedly cremated her body to prevent the British from capturing or desecrating her remains. This secret cremation preserved her dignity and fueled her legend, but it left her son exposed to the empire. While the queen became a martyr, 9-year-old Damodar Rao became a fugitive in the Bundelkhand jungles. He spent 2 years in dire poverty, with only a few dozen retainers. Local villagers, fearing British reprisals, refused to provide food or shelter, forcing the group to survive in the forest. He eventually surrendered to the British under humiliating terms. The empire stripped him of his entire 600,000 rupee royal trust and reduced him to begging for a monthly pension of 150 rupees. He settled in Indore under a British-appointed guardian, eventually taking up photography, a hobby that required him to document the world through a lens controlled by the same power that took his throne. He finally died in 1906 at the age of 56, living out his final days in absolute poverty and complete historical obscurity. The child whose disenfranchisement triggered the war was erased by the myth of the war itself. Post-rebellion pop culture has altered the Rani's reality, splitting her legacy between a humanized literary figure and a cinematic icon. Jayashree Misra's 2007 novel, Rani, attempted a feminist retelling. She portrayed Lakshmibai as a woman who was often terrified, a mother driven by anxiety for her son, and a tactical thinker trying to avoid war. This humanized portrayal faced immediate political backlash. The book was banned in Uttar Pradesh for suggesting the queen was vulnerable or capable of complex negotiation with British officials. The 2019 film Manikarnikaghat offers the opposite, a hyper-nationalistic superhero. It strips away her human doubt to create an image of effortless perfection. This cinematic portrayal hides the desperation of the 1857 uprising. By making her victories look predestined, we lose the gravity of her actual choices. Historical courage does not require a flawless superhero. The real greatness of Rani Lakshmibai was that she was an ordinary mother who dared to confront a corporate empire, even when it cost her son everything.